Hello and welcome to the Palsy Podcast with me, Ciaran Fitzgerald. I'm a playwright, screenwriter, and podcaster from South Wales. And seeing as March is Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, to mark it, I've decided to interview interesting people who have cerebral palsy from Wales and beyond every day in March. If you like this episode, please stay tuned for more throughout the month and like and share. Now enjoy this episode of the Palsy Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the Palsy Podcast with me, Ciaran Fitzgerald. So this is the podcast that I'm making to mark Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, and I'm talking to interesting people who have CP throughout the month of March. And today I'm very lucky to be joined by Ellis Palmer. How are you doing, Ellis? How's it
Hi,
going, mate?
Kieran. How you doing? It's a pleasure to join you and speak to you today.
It's lovely to meet you, mate. Thank you so much for giving up your time today. So I'm gonna kind of open up with how I start most of these episodes. Like, what was your experience growing up with CP as a kid? And was there a moment where you first
I
felt,
think growing up with CP is always a bit of a weird one because I think you always have to start at the origin of the CP to get the full notion of a person and take it from there.
yeah,
So I was born extremely premature. I was born 24, 25 weeks. I was born at 15 weeks early, so extremely prem. So I was born in October. So no, I was born in July. I wasn't supposed to be born until October.
yeah.
So you can imagine that with a premature. There was a twin. Unfortunately, my brother, Jonathan, passed away from complications and infections and everything like that. But it's very, very difficult for my parents, I think, really,
Mm,
um, to have that situation. And then I wasn't diagnosed with CP until I was 2.5. So that was
mm,
quite a bit of a shock for my parents and my dad. You kind of go down the rabbit hole, as my dad always says, you go down the rabbit hole of looking what's of it. You kind of look at worst case scenarios. I think my parents did a lot of the time. They got to, the very kind of worst case scenario CP.
I don't know if your parents were told the same as mine, but my parents were basically told, oh, he won't walk, he won't talk, he'll have profound learning disability. And that must be
Exactly.
really hard to
Is
deal
that
with.
you won't talk, you won't see, you won't hear, you'll have a learning disability and really difficult conversations to have because I think that's oftentimes, you know, non-disabled people's experiences. When we hear the word CP, that's
Yeah.
what I've even had that in my life and it's really frustrating. It's really weird. So so my mum and dad were like, right, what's out there, what's available? They found a conductive education person in on the wheel. We was operating a bunch of parents, and they got involved with that. And then I had really intense physical therapy a couple of times a week with her, which brought on my development really well. And then I used to go up to Scotland to have conductive education. And then when I was 9, 10, the conductive education centre opened up about 10 minutes down the road from me here. And that made a big difference in terms of my physical ability. Being able to have that intense physical
Mm,
therapy that I needed to be able to thrive, to be able to be myself. In terms of school, um, I went to a special school nursery. I was actually
right.
borderline special school mainstream when I was 4 or 5 for going to secondary school. But as I was born in July, my parents kind of had the option to delay me a year, but the test showed them I'd be okay to go to mainstream school, even though it was borderline. So I went to the only school that was accessible was the Catholic primary school down the road. My mum
Right.
went in for a meeting with the head teacher, Mrs. Palmer. Right. We need a letter from your parish priest to enable your son to come here. Mum said, right, okay, I'll go back to Derby, get a letter from parish priest. And she's thinking, oh God, this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to happen. This isn't going to work. It's the one school that had level access as a
Mm,
primary school that I was able to go to as a disabled person within like a half an hour radius of home at the time back in 1998. So about that, so yeah, so and then on the way out, my mum bumped into the priest of that school, who ironically was a think he was the priest who gave me my baptism. He was the priest who did my brother's funeral. My brother died. And he knew the family. He knew me, he knew my grandma, he knew my dad. Sorry,
Mm,
how's Rob? How's my dad? How's he doing? How's
mm,
football? Blah 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 blah.
mm,
How's Ellis? Oh my God, he's
mm.
4 or 5. He's coming to school next year. Oh, Father Ivan, you know Mrs. Palmer, said the head teacher. Oh yes, yes, I know the family. Yes. Oh, no problem. Your son can come here, Mrs. Palmer. That made the difference in terms of me being able to get into the local primary school, local Catholic primary school, but with level access and made a big difference. And then from there, again, the weird thing about primary school is you kind of can get mollycoddled by teaching assistants,
Yeah.
certain variety. But I actually had quite good TAs at primary school. My parents were quite hot on the school in terms of encouraging me and encouraging my physical development. I used to go out walking every day and, playing football with my mates in the
It
playground.
might be worth mentioning at this point how your CP affects you, just so people, if you don't mind,
I'll come to that in a second.
Yes, yes,
So yeah, walking around on my frame with my mates playing football,
yeah.
that was great. And then about 9, 10, still walking around with my mates, the NHS decided they would give us an electric chair.
Right.
So fine, no problem, brilliant. I still remember driving this chair round my parents' house, driving it like a Tonka toy. It was round my house, through the doors, everything like that, and that made a big difference. And then that was great. But then when I went to secondary school, the thing we found was the school were very, very focused on me not getting out of the chair, using the electric chair to get
Mm.
around, not being able to play with my mates on the pitch, on the football pitch at lunchtime or break time. So actually what I ended up doing was going in my electric chair one day playing on the football pitch. Needless to say, I got very much told off. Might never happened again. So that was difficult. But then the good thing about my secondary school is in year 8, they hired a bunch of local rugby union players. And I still
Oh,
remember it. They came in, big, bulky guys, brilliant, brilliant people. And they made a massive difference. Yeah, Ellis could do PE. Ellis will come in the gym with me. Ellis will lift weights. Ellis will do that. It was
oh,
brilliant. So, from a growing up perspective, that made a big difference, because I think oftentimes with CP in the school system, you don't necessarily have that great relationship with your peers sometimes because, you are sat next to the TA a lot of the time in
yeah.
school.
I
And that
like.
can be a bit isolating for people. Like having TAs who were relatable, who gave me confidence to go and do things, made a big difference. And then from there, I went on to 15, the local, the RS teacher called me over one day. He said, Ellis, said, where are you looking at going to sixth form? I said, I'll go to the local sixth form college down the road. And he pulled me over and he said, Ellis, don't just look at the local sixth form college, look at school sixth forms as well. But a big
Right.
thing for me, being a wheelchair user, being able to get around and about places independently by myself,
Yeah.
was being able to get the bus places. So I went, right, I want to look at all the sixth forms on this bus route, the 437 bus route,
Mm.
because it stops just right outside my parents' house and right outside indeed where I'm speaking to you from now. Took me on, there's a couple of schools within a half an hour radius. Right, let's look. So we went looking online and we found the local girls' grammar school was on
Okay.
the route and had a sixth form, but we weren't sure if they accepted lads.
Yeah.
So the careers advisor was like, you know what? Just go to the open day, throw caution to the wind, go to the open evening
Right.
and see what happens. We arrived there. Sorry, do you accept male students? Oh yes, yes, we accept male students. Yes, yes. We only take 12 a year. That was that. But oftentimes I talk about the soft bigotry of our expectations around disability as well. And that
Right.
was a real problem during the education system. So my secondary school when it came to GCSEs, they gave me all C's apart from history at B because I really enjoyed history as a subject at school. And then in year 10, they upgraded all the grades to all B's and maths at a C, weirdly enough. And
Mm.
then at the start of year 11, we were like, yeah, we'll give you a B in maths. But the problem is,
Right.
when it came to applying to the girls' grammar school, they wanted a B in maths. The school sent over the wrong predicted grades for me,
Ah.
and I got rejected. You know,
Oh,
behold, my dad went
mate.
in for a meeting because we were really concerned about why I'd been rejected, everything like
Mm.
that. Well, this is the record which I sent over. My dad got my predicted grades out there that I brought home with me, and it showed a B in maths. And the head teacher said, right, if he gets a B in maths, we'll take him. So that was that. It is the sliding doors when it comes to education, really. That
Do
sliding
you,
doors
do
of
you do you
opportunity.
think do you think those predicted grades were the result of ableism? Then do you think there was ableism involved in that?
Yeah. And I think that made a big difference. So, in terms of my CP, you asked me about my CP. I've got
Yes.
quadriplegic dyskinetic cerebral palsy. Whoopie doo. What does that mean? What does that mean in essence? It means I've got a brain injury, brain problem. That's the cerebral palsy bit. That's the
Yeah.
easy bit that we all should know, given that we're listening to the Palsy podcast. I remember
We're
quadriplegic.
episode 20 right now. People should know it's a brain injury. Carry on, Alex.
Exactly. And then the quadriplegic bit means it affects all four limbs. And then the dyskinetic bit means it kind of affects movement, balance,
Yeah.
coordination, all that element of things. For me, I can walk a little bit, mostly up and down stairs, not gonna lie. I love walking up and down stairs, and I love walking on planes for some reason, even though it knackers me and puts a lot of pressure on me.
Yeah.
And then and it isn't great when you've got a big crowd watching you, but that is what it is. It's got to be done sometimes. And then yeah, and then basically I've got no balance really. So I can stand to transfer myself
Right.
to and from my chair to the toilet, or to and from my chair to the shower, or to and from bed, or to and from the car, but I can't really balance myself. So the minute I let go of what I'm holding on to, I'm going to end up in a heap on the floor, Ciaran, basically.
Right.
So that's the nature of things, and that can be really difficult. Not
Hmm.
difficult sometimes, but people just I think oftentimes, especially when people meet you on Zooms like this, they sort of go, "Ooh, Ellis must be a paraplegic sort of thing." But actually, no, I've got CP,
Have
and
you have you
trying to explain that to people and trying to explain
hmm,
sometimes how draining and
hmm.
tiring, physical stuff can be and everything like that really does take a lot out of you, mate.
Yeah, because it takes a lot of energy. Like I get this trying to explain to people what it is, because maybe they've got one picture of CP in their head, they met one person. Like if you learn anything, audience, from listening to these podcasts, you'll know that everyone is affected differently and everyone's got a unique kind of story with CP.
I
And
mean,
it's
sincerely, the thing I always say is kind of, on a good day, when I've had at least 5, 6 hours sleep, I can do those things, I can do anything. And a really good day is like 8, 9 hours sleep in bed, and that's brilliant sort of thing. On a bad day, when I've had intermittent sleep, when I've had this, that, the other, just don't ask me to focus on anything. Don't ask me to focus on anything that requires me to balance or coordinate myself or anything like that. Because you just know, no, it's not going to happen. My legs are going to be flying up in the air. My left hand's really good. Hello, left hand. My right hand is known as wavy davy because it just goes up in the
okay.
air. And then I have to use, it's got like an 88, I think it's called an 88 reflex or something like that. So I have to kind of use my left hand to bring it down and put it back in position. And then my legs always look a bit messy, but they work for me. And that's the most important thing, that they work for me. But
Yeah.
they don't look perfect. I think that's kind of oftentimes, you're trying to explain to people what living with CP is like, non-disabled people that is. And you can't, you really struggle
No.
because, I say on a good day I can do this and that. On a bad
But
day, it's really difficult to
it's
function.
different every day, though, isn't it? Every day is different, and every day we come with new challenges that maybe you haven't faced before. Oh, that's a bit different. Where's that come from, sort of thing. But it's hard. But I hope through these podcasts that people get a range of different people's experiences, so that they might understand a bit more about what CP is. I'm gonna move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna move on slightly, Alex. So, where did your kind of interest in journalism come from? When did you think that's what I want to
If I'm
do?
honest with you, and I would say this completely by accident.
Right.
How does somebody end up working at the BBC World Service by accident? Right. Yes, it's an interesting one. So I always wanted to go into politics when I was a kid, teenager, even going through university. I wanted to go and be in politics and advise in public policy, because that's a real realm that I saw. But I could, especially growing up as a disabled person, you often find that, there's so many decisions that are taken out of your hands. You're constantly having to advocate for yourself, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms of being able to do stuff. So you become a very fierce self advocate. And that has its upsides in many, many ways. It also has its downsides, especially with people who aren't used to being around disabled people. That's
Yes.
really what I wanted to go do for a career when I was at school and a teenager, go into politics, really make a difference, really make an impact.
Did you want to be an MP or that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Yeah, reading between the lines there. But yes, yeah, that's kind of what I want to go do. And then, because I think you can make a big difference through that, really, which makes them,
Mm,
and that's something that really matters to me. Not just being on this earth to do that, but being on this earth to have an impact, and not just to build yourself
completely.
up, but build the people around you up, which really, really matters. And to me. And then I went to Birmingham for university. I went to the University of Birmingham to study politics and Spanish.
Mm,
Actually, the official degree title is European Studies, open bracket, politics, close bracket, and modern languages, open bracket, Spanish and Catalan, close bracket, because my university offered me the opportunity to do Catalan as basically they said in the first year you have to study another language.
yeah.
In the Spanish department you have to study another language. It's not Spanish. It could be Portuguese. It could be
Mm,
Catalan. My parents and friends, their friends at the time, really wanted me to do Portuguese because at the time I was going to uni 2012. The 2014 World Cup, I think, was in Rio, wasn't it?
yeah,
In
it was
Brazil.
in
So
Brazil. Yeah.
they really wanted me to go to that to speak Portuguese. But no, I said Catalan was politically the more interesting language. So that's what I went and did. I did Catalan. Needless to say, I loved it. I went and did my university in this country. I'll be honest with you, Ciaran, wasn't a great experience. I didn't really enjoy university in this jurisdiction. But I got lucky in that at the time I was going to university, this country, this jurisdiction, was still a member of the European Union.
Yeah.
So I was able to partake in the Erasmus scheme. And I went and did my third year of my undergrad in the Faculty of Law at the University of Barcelona.
How
Again,
how
how
how?
CP intersects with this
Yes.
is that I was going to look around at various universities, but I'm not sure what the access is like in Spain, because in this jurisdiction we've got like DSA and all things like
Yeah.
that, note takers and lecturers, and I didn't really see any of that infrastructure around in Spain. So I was actually all set. Told my university I didn't want to go in the year board and make sure to look at other options as a reasonable adjustment. But the university, oh no, no, we'll make it work. Here's our list of universities, get in touch and see what access they've got. First university I went to was in Vitoria, in the Basque Country. Lovely
Nice.
capital of Basque Country. Really nice university. Me and my mum went for a look around because these were two I'd chosen. Really nice university, incredibly green city, brilliant to get around as a city. Really mobile, really green, lots of parks.
Lovely.
Downside to Victoria, it was an hour and a half from Bilbao and an hour and like 20 minutes from Bilbao Airport by
Oh,
coach. There was no train.
oh, that's not very
And my
nice.
mum, being my mum, bless her, she was like, well, you can do the chair breaks down. Well, you can do the chair breaks down. You're going to be
Yeah.
scuppered. How are we going to get over to you if something happens with your chair and you've got a problem, you've got a real problem? I'm like,
Mm.
yeah, okay, I kind of see the point. So I really wanted to go there. Could have pushed harder for it, but then we went to Barcelona and miracles happen. But I'll come to that now, which is we got to Barcelona. First night was fine. We got on the metro. 95% of the metro is accessible in Barcelona. It's brilliant. It's a
That's
city
really
to get
good.
around, by the way. However, the station we were trying to get off at wasn't accessible. So
Oh,
we got
mate.
Google Maps out and it was like, we could go to this other station and then get a bus. So we're coming out of this other station, and as we're coming out of the other station, my wheel clips the ticket barrier and breaks.
So the chair, but
The chair was kaput. The chair couldn't
bloody
be,
hell.
couldn't be electric anywhere at all. So my mum being my mum, determined to make this meeting at the university, had to push me around Barcelona for 2 days because we were broken, which was an
Oh,
absolute drama. But
goodness.
we got to the university, and again, my mum with a list of questions, how do we make this work?
Yeah,
For her peace of mind more than anything, because I think, particularly as a parent of somebody with CP, it's a very nerve-wracking experience because,
yeah,
there's a lot you don't know, and it's difficult to admit you don't know stuff as a parent. So we went to the university. My mum was like, right, what's the my mum's question to this esteemed professor of political science, who then became a very good friend actually. But he was like, right, what's academic stuff? Fine, no problem, brilliant, we'll take you.
yeah.
What do we do? My mum's chief question was, is there any accessible accommodation near here? Where is it? We couldn't find anything on the
Mm,
website. And this professor goes, oh, yes, there is accommodation, I think, across the road that has a rec room. So he calls him up. Oh, yes, we have a rec room. Come over in 10 minutes. So me and my mum went
okay.
over in 10 minutes. And we didn't just have a rec room, they had a whole cavernous bathroom, toilet. It was brilliant.
Wow.
It was really, really good. The water did come out the bathroom every so often, so you had to be a bit careful with that. But it was fantastic. It was
And
great.
you had a good
So
experience. And,
they cooked all my food for me as well. So all my mum's
oh,
questions about, how is Ellis going to eat? They cook me 3 meals a day.
mm,
I had a cleaner come in and clean my room every day. And a wet room bathroom to myself. It's like being in a 4 5 star hotel. It
that's
was
not too
absolutely
bad, though,
brilliant.
is
I
it?
got
That's
really well looked
okay.
after in Barcelona to the extent that I went back over and did my masters over there as well in contemporary democracy and nationalism.
Right.
But I then decided, I don't want to go and do politics really. Well, I looked around and it was all in Oxbridge, and I thought, and bloke from the Northwest who's been to Birmingham, I don't really think I'll fit in there too well. So I was like, shall I go do the academics? So I went and did my masters in federalism, nationalism, and current democracies at the
Mm,
Company Fabric in Barcelona. But I didn't really enjoy that. And I've
okay.
been working since the start of my final year at uni. I've been working in the tape library at Sky. But for tape library at Sky, so getting paid to watch football matches and rugby league matches and
That's
GA
not bad.
matches. It was a brilliant experience. So I did that. It was a great job. I actually got a bit sick of watching football, actually, but that's another story.
Mm, yeah.
And then I did that. And then I did a bit of social media management for like one of my professors at university for his news website and other things, social media for coffee shops, all that sort of thing. So I really enjoyed all that. And then yeah, somebody got in touch with me who was working at BBC Radio Humberside and known since I was 13 and said, hey, you should apply for a scheme that the BBC have got going for disabled journalists.
Right.
So I thought, you know what, I'll apply, but come on, maybe somebody miles better than me with my mediocre experience sort of thing. Okay. And then 2 weeks later, oh, you got an interview. I'm like,
Wow.
wasn't expecting that. Interview at BBC Broadcasting House in London. So I thought, right, not going to get the job, but it's a really nice day out for me and my dad. So we might as well go and enjoy it. And maybe somewhere down the line, some freelance work will come of it.
Yeah. But
Well,
you
dear
got it.
reader, well, dear reader, that was 8 years and 10 months ago, and
Okay.
I'm stuck at the BBC still. But no,
So
no.
tell me a bit about the job then. What is the role and what kind of stories are you
So I
covering?
came in. I came in on a scheme called Extending Digital News for
Okay.
disabled journalists, basically putting it in the digital news department. So I worked on the website for a year, on the BBC News website. It was great fun.
Mm,
Getting to write stories and do live pages. And my very first day, I was translating stuff from Catalan to English from press conferences and all that. It was
mm.
brilliant. It was a great experience. That's probably the high point of my BBC career, actually, the first 10 days, because I was the only person in the newsroom. It seemed he could speak
Was it during
Catalan.
COVID? Was it during COVID that like
Yeah, it was good fun. I enjoyed it at those first 10 days. And then I'd worked on the website and then I went from there to the digital video desk. So I basically edited loads of videos together for the BBC website, social media,
mm,
Instagram, Facebook, not TikTok back then, Twitter, all that element of
mm,
things. Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed developing that element of technical skills as well. And I went, right, okay, I've written for a website, I've done a year of that, that was brilliant. I've edited digital videos, I've learned how to edit video, really great skill going forwards. And at the time, I was like, right, I want to take something that's going to get me up to 5 Live in Salford.
Yeah.
This is 2019, 2020, which is still where I probably view my career at some point. Because I'm home and I work remotely in the Northwest just for support
Yeah.
needs and everything like that. We'll come to that a bit later. And so that was that. So I was like, right, okay, I'll take a job in. I was applying for loads of jobs, and this one came up. It's a program called News Hour on the BBC World Service. And I thought, okay, I'll apply for that. I listened to it. It sounded like something from 1985, Ciaran. I couldn't quite believe how kind of old
What
hat
is
it
it? What is news hour? Because when I
is.
was
Come to that. It
researching
sounded like
about,
something from 1985. So it was
never heard of it before.
international news, but it was kind of sitting at your hot cocoa sort of thing. But I applied for
Okay,
the
yeah.
job. I did the interview, actually from my mate's coffee shop in Barcelona by Skype. And it actually ended up being delayed by 3 hours because there was a train strike on my day and people couldn't get into the office. I
Oh
thought, oh
gosh.
God. Anyway, did the interview. They laid out all this, it sounds like it's from 1985. There's no gender, no diversity in there, everything like that. And somehow they offered me the job. So NewsHour,
Wow.
I've been there 6 years now, scary thought, 6 and a bit years. Is kind of international news. It's kind
Mm.
of war, death, famine, climate change occasionally, and Donald Trump a lot of the time.
All the fun
Um,
stuff.
so all the fun stuff, indeed. It's all that. It goes out on BBC World Service, but of course, crucially, it goes out to BBC's American public radio partners as
Mm.
well. So it goes out to I don't know, WAMU and stations like that all around the United States. So 450 of them in the US. So if ever you meet an
Wow.
American person, you say, I work on NewsHour. If they're a public radio listener, oh, I love that program, it's brilliant. I'm like, yeah, okay, I make that happen. So
What
yeah,
what
so
what kind of stories were you interested in? What did you want to cover? What did you really want to achieve as a
I
teacher?
what I love to cover is stuff that really affects people, stuff that really gets under people's skin, and stuff that makes an impact. So the glorious thing about the BBC is it's a bit like Disneyland. You get in, you go on one ride, you think it's brilliant, and you go to the next because there was loads of rides you can go on, really, and that's great.
Yeah.
But things I've loved doing at the BBC, I've did loads and loads of 4 a.m. starts for the weekend breakfast program where I get up at 4:30, delve into the news, have a call with the person producing the breakfast slots at 5, and then I would have an hour to write up a script before I'd be on 15 local radio stations up and down England, Scotland, and Wales, sort of thing.
Wow.
So you'd have a 7 minute slot for each, and you'd have to kind of
Mm.
give them the big news story of the day. I love that. That was a great gig. I also used to present a bulletin on BBC Three called The Catch Up,
Mm.
which is focused at younger audiences. So words like inflation were banned. You had to use price rises and you had to really explain things, which is great as a journalist because sometimes it really gets you outside your comfort zone. Because I
Making
think
the news
that's,
more accessible as well to young people and
yeah,
getting them engaged in politics.
but
Yeah.
accessible in all senses. I think that's something society needs to come to terms with. Is that we make the news accessible for one group, we instantaneously make it accessible for a lot more people.
Yeah, I agree.
Avoiders, people who do this, people who do that. And I mentioned before, since the onset of the pandemic in 2020, I've mostly worked remotely from home, from where I'm talking to now. And that makes a big difference as a disabled person living with CP. Because if you're able to work from home and you're able to work
Mm.
remotely, it's a lot less energy that's required, if that makes
Traveling
sense.
takes so much energy.
When I
I'm
used to
really
work,
lucky that I can do
I
this.
mentioned I
And
used to work on the digital video desk.
yeah.
Well, for the early shifts there and the early shifts on the online desk, which were kind of 6 a.m., 7 a.m. starts, I used to get up at 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, I couldn't do that. How did you do that, Ellis?
I look back at it and I'm like, yes, how did I do that? I don't know. But I used to have my breakfast, have a shower, get a taxi. Again, getting it at the time I was living down in London, so getting a cab in London any time past that 6:30 is a bit of a nightmare.
Mm.
I used to have to get the taxi as early as I could at like 5 o'clock, and it would end up being cheaper because, of course, you're balancing that get up against things like access to work, and access to work would only give me 35, an average of £35 for taxis. So every taxi ride had to balance up, so the average came at about 35 quid, which is brilliant until you're getting a taxi back at 11 o'clock at night, and it's 45 quid on a Thursday, Friday
Yeah.
night to where I was living at the time. So that would be outside the average. So I then had to get taxis early in the morning to balance down the average. All
Yeah.
disability bureaucracy stuff. But actually, I think this is the stuff we do in the background, but
Yeah.
people don't necessarily
The
see
the
non-disabled
the
people.
the admin that goes into planning a basic journey, whether it be for work or night out with your mates. The planning involved,
Oh, it's
and
knackering, isn't it? It's knackering.
the extra cost as well that people maybe don't realise.
Yeah, I mean, again, when I was living down in London, I went one night to a comedy event. It was brilliant, really, really good comedy event. It was at 20 quid at the Camden Irish Centre. So I went and it was £40 in a taxi there because there was no train station and no bus route nearby that was accessible. It would have been two buses in 2 hours, or
Mm.
the tube wasn't accessible in that area. Which again, only about 30% of the tube's accessible in London, probably even less for me to get around independently by myself. So that's a
Mm.
real nightmare you come up against. And then on the way back, because again no tube, no bus, anything like that, it ended up being £45 on the way back. So for a £20 gig ticket, Ciaran, I'd spent 85 quid.
It's
My parents at the
ridiculous.
time were like, "Oh, why don't you go be more social?" I'm like, "Well, here's the cost of me being more social. I do it, and then the next day I'm unable to get out of bed because I'm completely knackered,
Knackered.
completely
Uh,
shattered."
and it's cost you 4 times more than it would a non-disabled person.
Exactly, exactly. And these are the things that I think people don't realise.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's a big difference. And then, again, I made the point about remote working, but I think it's worth saying again. But
Mm.
the government always talks a lot about wanting to get more disabled people into work. I think as a disabled person, one thing that employers could do to really enhance the number of disabled people in work is offer remote working. Because
Yeah, I
it's not
agree.
that we're not capable of working. We are. We just need reasonable adjustments we just need adjustments in place
Yeah.
to enable us to work. One of those is remote working. Our batteries might start the day at 100%, but by getting up out of bed, they drop down to about 60, if you get me really sometimes.
Yeah.
So, it's all that extra effort that people don't see. It's not that people can't work, people can work, but they just need adjustments to be able to work. And trying to get
We need
employers.
things to be put in place for us to be able to function effectively and contribute actively. I think that the narratives that have been around the last few weeks about the demonization of disabled people and the reluctance to talk about reasonable adjustments, just it's scary, really. I
Yeah,
think.
and then you go into the debate of, what is a reasonable adjustment? How reasonable is the
Yeah.
adjustment? All that. It's a really frustrating conversation. But I always say, look, with disabled, we're constantly disabled people balancing up in our heads. You know, this is the adjustment. Is this adjustment reasonable? Yes, no. Where do I need to get to? How do I need to manage this? How do I need my life to go? And what adjustment do I need? Put it this way, because of internalized ableism, I don't really think a disabled person is ever going to make an unreasonable adjustment, if you get me.
No, I understand that the thing. Oh, am I asking too much? Are they going? Yeah, God, internalized
Exactly,
ableism,
exactly.
bane
Yeah.
of my life, mate. It's hard, but
But also just for accessible housing, Kieran, as well. Oftentimes
yes,
tends to be in areas that are far from public transport, or tends to be in areas that, aren't easy to get to and easy to get from for people. So disabled people oftentimes excluded from the labour market in that way as well.
like I'm 30. I'm still living with my parents, and I want to move out, but trying to find accessible places in Cardiff, which is where I want to move to, because that's where the work is a bit of a nightmare. Really, there's very little available. that is accessible for me.
I mean, it's the things that people don't see, but then if you make it so that reasonable adjustments are available, so you're able to work from home and
Yeah.
you're able to have the technology from work from home, suddenly those opportunities and those options open up to you in quite a
Yeah.
significant way.
I want to move on slightly. It's been really interesting talking to you, Alice, but I want to talk about power hockey. So, what is power hockey and how did you get into it?
I mentioned to you before, I was at school, I played football on my walking frame with
Yeah.
my mates at break time. And I went to secondary school and I tried going on my walking frame. The school wouldn't let me do it, health and safety, they said. I'm going to try going in my wheelchair on my football pitch, and the school go, no, we said you couldn't go on your walking frame for health and safety. You definitely can't go on the football pitch in your wheelchair for health and safety. That put me off team sport from the age of 11 to the age of 29. I thought, football's not for me. I mean, one day, sport's not for me. Team sport, that is. And then one day I was scrolling through Facebook on a lunch break, and I came across this post for power football at the
Mm,
Greenbank Sports Academy in Liverpool. So I thought, okay, I'll make a note of that. And I turned up, and it's full of gumption, me, always full of gumption.
yeah.
And then I got in my chair. And I got in the chair, driving the straight line, no problem, quite normal to drive an electric chair, maybe a little bit faster. When I went to turn it left, and rather than turning left at half speed as a normal electric chair does, it turns at the same speed. Massive
Yeah.
shock moment. Then threw me on the pitch. And of course, me being me, watching running football and running rugby and all that sort of thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
I go to block off the space behind the defender. And they're like, oh no, you've got to stay 3 meters away from your opponent in power football. I'm like, God, that's not really going to work for me. I describe myself as Lee Catamole, twinned with Peter Clark, former Everton and Tranmere. He's been at loads of
Yeah.
clubs, but that's my style of play. I close down people and not people, a bit of a bruiser. So, right, okay, so I give the power football a go. And they said, oh, you should come down and try out power hockey. And I thought, I'm not being funny, but my right hand, we call it wavy davy because it flies
Mm,
up in the air. My right hand's not going to be able to my right hand's not going to be able to hold a hockey stick. So there's no way I'm going to be playing hockey
mm.
because I'm going to knock people's heads off and all that. So I put it off 6 weeks, and they continued to mention me. You should try out this power hockey because there's no 2-on-1 rule. You've not got to stay 3 meters away from your opponent. You can go in
Right.
and as close as you
Yeah.
want. I thought, right, okay, I'll give that a go eventually. And turned up, there was no stick. My fears were all wrong, but it's just a big bumper at the front of the chair. Same with power football bumper,
Mm,
similar to a power football bumper, similar size, but a different bumper to a power football bumper. And underneath the main bumper, it's got this metal thing with like two hooks coming out of it. And the
mm.
hooks are what you use to balance the ball, Ciaran.
So
So
what
yeah,
they
you've got
look
two.
like?
Yeah, exactly. You've got two hooks coming out like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they balance the ball in, and you've got to balance this tiny little hockey ball inside these two hooks
Is
while
it
you've
just
got
a is it just a normal size hockey ball?
normal sized hockey ball, nothing special about the hockey ball. Whilst you've got people trying to bash into you.
And it's full contact.
Yeah, full contact. Well, it's not full contact. It's contact sport, but it's not full. You can't go
Mm-mm.
head first into somebody. That would be a bit dangerous. But you can certainly crash into the side for sure. And it's full contact. So basically, a bunch of people, most of whom we've got CP and Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, bashing into each other whilst chasing after a hockey ball. I'll be honest with you, I don't call it power hockey. I call it power rugby to most of my
Yeah.
friends and family. Because that is what it's mostly like. It's like rugby. It's contact.
And is there a league? Like, are there like,
There
could
is
you
indeed a
play
league.
for
There is
England
indeed a
one
league. We've
day?
just announced the dates for the league. The league's going to take place on the 16th of May and the 31st of May. The 16th of May will be in Wakefield in South or West Yorkshire. I can never decide which of the two it
Mm.
is because it's close to Leeds for one and close to Sheffield for the other. So Wakefield on the 16th of May is the Northern Conference, and then the Southern Conference will be in in Gloucester. It was originally supposed to be in Cardiff, but it'll be in Gloucester
Oh,
on the 31st of May. But we do have a team in Cardiff, Ciaran, if you'd like to come and try it out.
I wouldn't
We
mind
do
giving it a
sessions every
go.
Wednesday with the Cardiff City Community Foundation from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. They've got chairs, you just get in them and have a smash.
Cool. So I don't like. I'm not a chair user, but that doesn't matter. I
Doesn't
can
matter,
go.
doesn't matter. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, doesn't matter.
amazing. And like, could you possibly play for England? Is there a
We don't,
national
we
team?
don't have an international structure yet. There is an international structure to power hockey, but unfortunately, that is for the stick game. Our version of
Okay.
the sport and the way we play the sport, I call it power rugby, but the way we play the sport with the hooks and the contact and everything like that, that's not internationally recognised by the international body. So we actually, we need to have a conversation about that at some point, really, in terms of how we expand internationally. But we've got a very, very competitive league structure. The Cardiff team, they're brilliant actually. They came second last year in the National League. They're really, really good bunch of lads. And
I
then
think I might go down and give it a go, Ellis. You know, I
definitely,
think it'll
Ciaran.
be a good
Sounds like
laugh.
your kind of sport. It's more like football and more like rugby than any other sport I've seen for non-disabled people. Sorry, for disabled people and people with
Hmm.
CP especially. It's brilliant. It's really,
And,
really
and
good.
how important has, like, you talked about not wanting to be involved in sport and then now being involved? Like, how important has participatory sport? And I say participatory, God, I tried to say participatory sport rather
There's
than.
nothing, there's nothing like
Hmm.
preaching to the converted, if that makes sense. I thought, oh, team sport's not for me, team sport's not going to work, everything like that. And then suddenly I get involved, and lo and behold, I'm converted. Yes, team sport can be for me. Yes, it is a thing that's out there. Yes, I can do all this great stuff. And that was a moment that just made me go, wowzer,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
sort of thing. And that makes a massive difference. Makes a massive difference to social mobility, social capital. In that I've now got loads of disabled people with similar experience. Oftentimes, it can guide me on stuff. Be it, oh, you should learn to drive using a mobility car.
yeah.
I kind of failed that experiment.
I'm
With yeah,
trying at the moment, so don't put
yes.
me off. Don't put
Keep
me
on
off.
keeping on, Ciaran. Keep on keeping on.
It's so hard.
Oh, it really is, isn't it? It really is. And then even stuff like, this adjustment, that adjustment might work for you. It's
Yeah.
for little things like that. But my girlfriend's also got CP, and we go away, two wheelchair users, similar types of CP. We both play power sports, and we go away on camper van holidays, two wheelchairs, one camper van. It's
Oh,
brilliant. Just a standard size camper van with a ramp on the side. You know, I get in for it. We've got a whole movement, we've got a whole way around it. There's a big bed at
yeah.
the back that we kip in, there's a projector for watching telly. You know what? It's brilliant. It's really, really good. But it's the liberating stuff of having people around you who've got similar experiences yourself that you're able to refer to stuff from. And oftentimes I find with CP, when I speak to people with the impairment, the thing that people often say is it's really socially isolating, especially when you get
Yeah.
beyond the age of 21.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oftentimes if you get to uni, you get to college, you finish uni, you finish college, and then there's nothing there for you.
Yeah.
Because as we said, this situation around employment and accommodation and
Mm,
everything like that
yeah.
is really, really difficult. So
And
people often people often
does
end up being socially isolated, away from peers, everything like that. That's where things like the value of team sport and being involved in a team and going down every Tuesday, every Wednesday, every Thursday night to these sessions, whatever it might be, can make a big difference, not just to your sense of self, but also not just you being part of a team, but also your sense of self, your sense of well-being,
absolutely.
comorbidities. I hate the phrase, but the comorbidities of things like anxiety and depression really
Yeah, I've
disappear when you're part
experienced.
of a group team, if that makes sense.
I found that I play tennis 3 times a week. I play football, and it's been such a benefit to my mental health. And yeah, just the community of the other people that you're around. And yeah, it's so beneficial. I did want to, you spoke about your girlfriend. I just want to ask one other thing. Like, your girlfriend's also got CP. Do you think that helps in a relationship that you kind of understand what it's
Oh,
like?
I mean, I've dated non-disabled people before, and I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you, it's so much easier dating a disabled person. There's just a no, especially somebody with the same nature of condition as itself, because there's just no bullshit there, really. There's
Mm.
just no barriers. There's just no problem when you kind of, you don't have, oftentimes in a relationship with a non-disabled person, you constantly find yourself having to explain yourself and
Yeah.
having to explain why you are and why you want things done. As a disabled
And yeah, anxiety around that of are they gonna get it? Are they gonna yeah. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, when you're doing that, it's just so much easier not having to explain everything constantly, not having to explain yourself and your way of doing things. It just makes everything so much less tiring. And there's just no bullshit, really. You're not able to
Huh?
kind of, fake stuff. You just gotta dive straight in and face it. It's brilliant, and we help each other with that relationship of mutual support there
Yeah,
when you need it. But also with non-disabled people can oftentimes be very overbearing in the first stages of a relationship, and then after the first stage of a relationship, when you say you need help because they're around you more and everything like that, they can sometimes become a little bit bitter
yeah,
about helping you out with stuff and everything like that. But being in a relationship with somebody with a similar nature of disability to yourself means you don't have to constantly, means there's not going to be that problem there, means there's not going to be that potential barrier you're going to come up
yeah.
against.
Absolutely. Thank you. And like it's given, I'm single at the moment and there's that anxiety for me about like are people gonna find me attractive? Am I gonna meet someone? But like what's been really interesting about these podcasts is talking to people with EP who are in happy, lovely, successful relationships. So best of luck to you both. Like the last question that I want to ask you before we finish is what is one thing, and only one thing that you wish people knew about CP?
Think it's less about CP and more about disability in general. I
Yeah,
think we as disabled people are our own best experts in terms of what we need in life, in terms of the adjustments we need to be able to work, to be able to study, to be able to have fruitful relationships, family relationships, be they friend relationships, family relationships, romantic relationships, whatever it
yeah,
may be. We're the people who are going to know the adjustments we need. So if we say we need something, respect it, sort of thing. Really respect kind of what we need and that way of doing that. So that for me is the big thing. If I had a magic wand, I would make remote working an option for every
mm,
single person living in the CP, and I make every employer have jobs that are available with that thing because I think it would really open up and show what people with moderate to high support needs can really do in the workplace and in society.
thank you, Alice. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for your time today.
No worries, Kieran. It's been a veritable pleasure.
And thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Palsy Podcast or watching on YouTube. Please stay tuned for more episodes every day for the rest of CP Awareness Month 2026. We're into the home straight now. We've got about 10, 11 episodes to go, but we've got loads more interesting people coming up. So please stay tuned. And if you've got any questions about CP or about any of my guests, please feel free to comment or message me and I'll ask my future guests on the next episode. But for now, it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from Alice.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
What Kieran really wants to say is up responds. Bye bye.
Episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Palsy Podcast with me, Ciaran Fitzgerald. I want to thank my guests for joining me, and I hope that you'll stay tuned for the next episode and more throughout March. Thank you.